On April 14, 1945, a nation held its breath. America faced an unthinkable loss. President Franklin D. Roosevelt was gone. Today we are taking you back to that solemn day in Washington, D.C. to witness his final emotional journey. We've unearthed incredibly rare, full footage of this entire funeral procession, allowing you to experience a piece of history most have only ever read about. From the hushed reverence at Union Station to the silent crowds lining every street, you'll see who was there, what unfolded, and feel the raw emotion of a country in mourning. This isn't just history, it is a testament to a leader and a nation that persevered through the darkest of times.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin from CBS World News. A press association has just announced that President Roosevelt is dead. The president died of a cerebral hemorrhage. All we know so far is that the president died at Warm Springs in Georgia.
It was April 14, 1945. World War II was nearing its end, but joy was eclipsed by the profound grief. Just 2 days prior, on April 12th, President Franklin Roosevelt had passed away in Warm Springs, Georgia, shattering a nation that had relied on his leadership through the Great Depression and the global conflict. His body was brought back to Washington, D.C. by a special funeral train. As the train pulled in to Union Station, that somber Saturday morning, the air was thick with a silence almost heavier than sound itself. The grand station, usually a bustling hub of activity, was transformed into a place of profound reverence. No cheering crowds, no festive music, just the quiet shuffle of feet and the soft murmur of hushed voices. This is where our rare footage truly begins to tell its story. You can see the somber faces of officials, the crisp uniforms of the honor guard. The casket, draped with the American flag, was carefully transferred from the train into the procession. It was an incredibly solemn moment, marking the true beginning of the Capitol's farewell to its longest-serving president. The funeral train, known as the FDR funeral train, was a special 9-car train. It traveled slowly from Warm Springs to Washington, D.C., allowing thousands of Americans to pay their respects as it passed through towns and cities along the route. People gathered at train stations, on overpasses, and in fields, standing silently, some weeping as their beloved leader made his final journey. Our archival footage often captures glimpses of these roadside mourners. FDR's beloved Scottish Terrier was also on board. At the time, he was the most famous dog in America. He is now buried next to the Roosevelts and another family dog. From Union Station, the funeral procession began its slow, deliberate journey to the White House. The journey was carefully planned, taking roughly an hour and a half. The city, usually vibrant and loud, was simply still. Shop windows were draped in black crepe. Flags across the Capitol flew at half-mast. Hidden fact: it was reported that the two of his 4 sons, Franklin D. Jr. and John Roosevelt, were still at their posts in the Pacific War Zone and declined to return home for the funeral. The 4 sons of America's first family were counted amongst those that served with distinction and honor during World War II. Leading the procession was a detachment of police, clearing the way. Behind them came various elements that reflected FDR's presidency and his unique connection to the American people. The hearse carrying Roosevelt's casket was not a typical one. It was a military caisson, usually reserved for battlefield fallen. The caisson was pulled by 6 gray horses. This choice emphasized his role as commander-in-chief during wartime. Fun fact, the caisson used for Roosevelt's funeral was actually the same one that had carried the body of the unknown soldier in 1921, linking him directly to those who sacrificed for the nation. Along the entire route from Union Station down Pennsylvania Avenue and towards the White House, the streets were lined shoulder to shoulder with hundreds of thousands of people. Estimates suggest up to 500,000 individuals stood in silent vigil. This rare footage truly captures the immersive scale of this public mourning. This was not a crowd of mourners expressing loud grief, but rather one characterized by deep personal sadness. Many wept openly. Some stood silently with heads bowed, reflecting on the man who guided them through 2 of the greatest crises in American history. It was a sea of solemn faces, a silent testament to the impact he had on individual lives. You can almost feel the hushed reverence through these amazing historical clips. The procession was a who's who of American leadership and military might. Behind the caisson walked the highest-ranking officials in the nation, such as President Harry S. Truman, cabinet members, Supreme Court justices, and members of Congress. The military presence was immense and deeply symbolic. All branches of the military were represented. Many high-ranking generals and admirals were present, many of whom had literally just returned from the battlefields of Europe and the Pacific. Titans such as General George C. Marshall, the Army Chief of Staff, and the architect of victory in Europe. Admiral Ernest J. King, the chief of the naval operations. He was a powerhouse in the Pacific War. General H. Hap Arnold, commander of the Army Air Force. Many other prominent generals and admirals who were stateside or had returned for the event would have been present along the route or as part of the formal ceremony at the White House. You can spot many of them in these archival reels. But General Dwight D. Eisenhower and Douglas MacArthur were not present. Eisenhower was still in Europe, fighting the war, and MacArthur in the Pacific. The honor guard had the supreme honor of walking directly beside the caisson, flanking the casket. The honor guard was composed of representatives of each branch of the military. These were carefully selected individuals, representing the best of the armed forces that FDR had led to the brink of victory. The procession finally reached the White House, FDR's home for over 12 years. This rare film shows the solemn approach and the guards saluting. The atmosphere shifted slightly from public mourning to a more private, yet still profoundly solemn tribute. The casket was carried into the East Room of the White House, a place where FDR had hosted countless dignitaries, given fireside chats, and made monumental decisions. Inside the White House, a similar, more intimate service was held. Only family, close friends, and the highest officials were present. This was their moment to say goodbye to the man they knew personally, away from eyes of the nation. Religious services were conducted and eulogies were given, praising his leadership and spirit. Fun fact: for the funeral, a special ramp had to be constructed at the White House to allow the caisson to approach the East Room for the service, as the usual entrance wasn't suitable for a military procession of that scale. This was a testament to the effort made to honor him appropriately, and you can sometimes catch glimpses of this unique setup in wider shots of the White House arrival. After the White House ceremony, Roosevelt's body was once again put on the funeral train for the final leg of his journey, home to Hyde Park, New York. This final ride emphasized his roots, his connection to the land he loved, and his desire to be buried simply amongst his family. Fun fact: when Roosevelt passed away, there were no plans for a grand tomb or memorial in Washington, D.C. He had expressed a simple wish to be buried in the Rose Garden at his family estate in Hyde Park, New York. His funeral was a testament to his down-to-earth nature despite his immense power. Roosevelt's burial at Hyde Park was a private family affair, marking the quiet conclusion of a life lived on the grandest public stage. But the funeral procession through Washington, D.C., captured in these rare and powerful films, remains a profound historical moment. It wasn't just a ceremony. It was a collective expression of grief, respect, and uncertainty for a nation facing a new era without a longtime leader. Thank you for joining us today. We invite you to watch all our videos, from famous funerals to diving into the archives, to find generations of history.